Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a really big topic, something that pretty much affects every part of your life. What is government, anyway? It sounds like a simple question, right? But the answer? Well, the answer is what shapes entire countries. So, let's get right into it.
Okay, let's kick things off with a little thought experiment. Just imagine for a second, you and a bunch of your friends, you're shipwrecked, stranded on a deserted island. Suddenly, you've got some major issues, right? Who's in charge of finding food? Who's going to build the shelter? Who makes the rules so things don't just fall into chaos? That fundamental problem, how to get organized, make decisions, and just keep some basic order. That is precisely why government was invented in the first place.
So that whole stranded on an island thing, that need for some kind of structure, that's the heart of it. That's why we need government. And it turns out pretty much every government on the planet, no matter what it looks like, really has three main jobs to do.
So what exactly is on that official government to-do list? Well, first you've got creating and enforcing laws. Everything from traffic lights to the rules for starting a business. Then there's the really big picture stuff, managing the country's economy and dealing with other nations. And finally, there are all the public services we kind of rely on every day. Things like firefighters, schools, even making sure our drinking water is safe. It's a huge job.
Okay, but government isn't just this one single giant thing, right? In a lot of places, like here in the US, it's actually broken down into different layers. Think of it like a cake. Let's check out those layers.
So, at the very top, you have the national government, think Washington, D.C., that handles stuff for the entire country. Then you zoom in a bit, and you've got your 50 individual state governments. And then, closest to all of us, are the local governments for our cities, towns, and counties. And we deal with all three of these all the time, sometimes without even thinking about it. You pay federal income tax, you get your driver's license from the state, and your local government picks up your recycling. See? All three.
All right, so we've covered what government does and where you find it. But now we get to the real juicy question, maybe the biggest one of all. Who's in charge? Who actually holds the power? This is where we start talking about the different forms of government.
And that simple idea, who holds the power, is what we call a form of government. It's really just a label, a way to answer the question, is it one person calling the shots? Is it a small group? Or is it everybody? So let's dive into the main types you'll see out there.
Let's start with a familiar one, democracy. The clue is right there in the name. Demos in Greek means the people. So pretty straightforward, right? In a democracy, the people are the ones in charge. And this is a big but, how they rule can actually be pretty different.
And that brings us to the two main flavors of democracy. On one hand, you have direct democracy. This is where every single citizen votes on every single issue. Think back to our island. This would be everybody getting together and raising their hands for every little decision. Now, on the other hand, you've got a representative democracy, which is also called a republic. This is probably more familiar. This is where we, the citizens, vote for people, representatives, to go and make those laws and decisions on our behalf.
Okay, now let's flip to the complete opposite of democracy. We're talking about autocracy. Again, the name helps. Auto means self or one. So this is ruled by one single person. They hold all the power. And a dictatorship is a classic example of this. Now there's another kind of rule by one, but it's got a special twist. That's a monarchy. Here, the leader is a king or a queen. The key difference? Power isn't usually taken by force. It's inherited. It gets passed down through the family.
But not all monarchies are the same. And this is a really important distinction. You've got your absolute monarchy, where the king or queen has, absolute power, no limits. But then you have a constitutional monarchy. In this case, the monarch is more of a symbolic head of state, and their power is seriously limited by a constitution, a written rulebook for the country.
So what happens when it's not one person in charge, and it's not all the people either? Well, that's where you get an oligarchy. This is rule by a small, powerful group of people. And how'd they get that power? Usually through things like wealth, military might, or just their high social status. It's rule by the few. And there's one more we have to talk about, where power comes from a totally different place, religion. In a theocracy, the laws of the country are based on a specific religion's rules and texts. And the government leaders? They're the religious leaders too. Okay, let's do a super quick recap, just to lock it in. Who rules? In a democracy? The people. An autocracy? One person. A monarchy? A king or queen. An oligarchy? A small group. And a theocracy? The religious leaders. See, when you break it down, it's pretty clear. And hey, if you want a little memory trick, just think about the root words. Dem for democracy, think demographics, the people. Auto for autocracy, think automatic, one thing working by itself. Mon for monarchy is easy. The O in oligarchy can remind you of a circle, a group. And theo for theocracy, think theology, the study of religion. Hopefully that helps. All right.
So we've totally nailed down the who rules part. But there's another piece to this puzzle, and it's just as important, and that's how the power is actually spread out. This moves us from the form of government to what we call the system of government.
So what's a system of government? Think of it like an organizational chart for a country. It's the blueprint. It doesn't care who is in charge. It just shows how power is divided up between the big, central government and all the smaller, regional governments.
First, you have the unitary system. The easiest way to picture this is a pyramid. All the real power sits right at the top, with the central government. It makes all the key decisions. And if any states or provinces have power, it's only because the central government decided to give them some.
Then we've got the total opposite of that, the confederal system. Just take that pyramid and flip it completely upside down. In this system, almost all the power is with the individual states or regions. They're the ones in charge. The central government, it's pretty weak, and it really only exists to help the states work together on a few things, like maybe defense.
And that brings us to the third one, the federal system. This is the middle path, and it's the system used in places like the United States. Here, power isn't all at the top or all at the bottom. Instead, it's shared. It's divided between the national government and the state governments by a constitution. Each level has its own lane, its own set of jobs to do.
So why did we just go through all that? Why does it matter to know the difference between a form and a system? Well, here's the cool part. You can mix and match them. It's like building with Legos. You could have a federal system that's a democracy, or you could have a unitary system that's a monarchy. Remember, the form tells you who rules, and the system tells you how their power is laid out.
And really, that brings us full circle. Everything we've talked about, every type of government on the planet, from your tiny local city council all the way up to the global superpowers, is just a different answer to that one single fundamental question we asked at the start. Who holds the power? And if you can understand the different ways that question gets answered, you're a whole lot closer to understanding how the world actually works. Thanks for tuning in to The Explainer.